Hello guys, today we're going to find out who shot into the crowd at Butler. Was it a 2-shooter scenario? Was it a 3-shooter scenario? And most importantly, who killed the fire chief? Yeah, thank you, Karen Walters. It was Jason Woods, the lead sharpshooter. But wait a second, can you still remember this footage here of Thomas Crooks? It was recorded at 4:26 p.m. and he was videotaped at the farm show in Butler. Yeah, how can it be Jason Woods if we can see the alleged assassin Thomas Crooks here? Well, very simple. Because of this text message of Jason Woods. He wrote a text message at 4:26 p.m. and that is exactly the same time, 4:26 p.m., that someone filmed Thomas Crooks at, and these two places are 350 meters apart. That's almost a quarter mile, and there's a couple of fences in between. So Thomas Crooks definitely cannot have been in these two places at once. What is happening here? Is this a deep fake? Well, many of you will know that I already debunked this here as a deep fake because there is no USA flag on the right shoulder of Thomas Crooks. So, is Jason Woods still not the shooter? Have I made a false accusation? No, because this text message is also very fishy. Now, Jason Woods claims he left his post at 4:19 p.m. and he requested his leave a couple of days earlier, July 8th. And at first I thought this was credible, but then I looked deeper into it.
It came to the political...
So Jason Woods was stationed at this window here, and he claims he left his post at 4:19 p.m. But why is his window still open then? It was a very hot day. And here we are already at 6:10 p.m.
rally at the last...
And we had no communication.
So he could have sent a text message to his colleagues saying, guys, sorry I left the window open, but he didn't do that. That's suspicious, right? Listen into it.
With the Secret Service.
You had no communication with the Secret Service at all on that Saturday?
No, not until after the shooting, I believe. Yeah.
And by then?
It was too late.
No communication until after the shooting, he believes. Yeah, but how can he know that? He claims he went home at 4:19 p.m. and the shooting was at 6:11 p.m. How can Jason Woods know when they started to have conversation or communication with the Secret Service? He claims he was home at that time. So we thus have to confirm that Jason Woods never left his post. And then you can ask the question, yeah, did Greg Nicol leave his post? Is this statement by Greg Nicol even credible? Greg Nicol says he left his post at 6:06 till 6:12. That's 5 minutes prior to the shooting. And he just walked around in the building, in a building where no one but himself and Mike Murcko are supposed to have been in. Yeah, they tell us there was no one in that building except for Greg Nicol and Mike Murcko. I don't think this is credible. I mean, Greg Nicol also never left his post, and Mike Murcko never left his post, and they were stationed at these three windows here, and each one of them took a group of shots. Greg Nicol took the shots 1 to 3, Mike Murcko took the shots 4 till 8, and Jason Woods took the most difficult shot, and that is shot number 9, and he fired it with a suppressor weapon. And that shot is the most difficult one because it had to hit. It was not allowed to miss. We heard one suppressor sound, and he shot Corey Comperatore in the head. And it was the plan that they had one suppressor sound shot because they wanted to make us believe that there was a badass sniper around here who shot Thomas Crooks in the head and prevented him from shooting further. And well, I already debunked this badass sniper in my first video of the playlist as AI generated nonsense. And here are a couple of more very contradicting statements that they made in the House of Representatives as late as October 21st, 2024. Now, first of all, they said they placed their personal several feet back from the windows. Why would they do that? This just narrows down their vision of observation. And here we can see how far these guns were placed back from the windows. So this is the first thing that is fishy, and they say they couldn't see the areas directly below the windows. Then Beaver SU Witness 3, this is Greg Nicol, said he observed a bicycle in the backpack, and he still said this as late as October 21st, even though the FBI had confirmed that these items did not belong to crooks. And to me, this looks like an AI-generated picture. And it was also Greg Nicol that said he thought that Crooks was suspicious because he was looking up at his sniper elements and he was trying to look into the windows and he would kind of come and go. But how should Thomas Crooks have done this? So Greg Nicol wants to make us believe that Tom Crooks walked into his or onto his window and tried to look into it. But how should he have done this? I mean, the window was on the upper floor. How should Tom Crooks have walked onto his window and looked into his window from that ground? And the next question is, we can see that Thomas Crooks had a smartphone. And why didn't Thomas Crooks just take a photo of these windows, of that side of the building, and just zoom in on his smartphone? I mean, every person under 50 years old with a smartphone would do that. Nobody would walk towards the windows completely conspicuously to try to look into the window. No, nobody would do that. No, we just take our smartphone, we take one photo, and then we zoom in on that smartphone. This is what we do. We use our smartphone. So this entire Tom Crooks trying to look into windows is just bonkers nonsense. And one more thing, Jason Woods is supposed to be the head sharpshooter, the leading sharpshooter, but look at the area that Jason Woods claims to have observed. He essentially observed some trees and an area that had nothing to do with the rally site, because in that map, that is the official map that they had in the House of Representatives, this is what they gave us. The podium of Donald Trump is in that part of the picture here. Somewhere here it would have been. It is not even in the picture here. And this is an official document of the House of Representatives here. It's not me who cut that picture off. So why would Jason Woods observe this nonsensical area when he is the lead sharpshooter of Beaver County? It doesn't make any sense at all. So we have this three-shooter scenario. Yeah, there's only one thing in this picture here, and that is that Mike Murcko, who took shots 4 till 8, could not have shot Comperatore because there was a tree in between him and Comperatore, preventing this trajectory. Now we got that all set, we can concentrate on Greg Nicol, who shoots the first shot, hitting David Dutch. And the first 3 shots are the shots where Donald Trump is still standing, and after the third shot, Donald Trump is on the floor under a pile of Secret Service agents, and there's no danger at all anymore for Donald Trump. So these first 3 shots, fired from the window of Greg Nicol, missed Donald Trump by a full 6 meters. This is 20 feet. So Donald Trump at no point in time was in any danger. And this just tells us that Donald Trump is the one who ordered this entire shooting. So here we can see how Jason Woods never left his post. Well, he only left the window. He only changed the windows. He changed from this window to this window. And these 3 windows are open. We can see that this window is open here, but the sun just brightening up this corner of the window here, of the window frame that is open. And here it's the same thing. This window is also open. We can also see that bright corner here. And here, this window is covered by the ventilator, so there is no bright corner, but we can also see the shade of the frame here of the open window. And this is Mike Murcko's window. And now they all have their posts, and then the firing begins. was it. So we had 3 groups of shots. Feel free to replay it as often as you want. We have the first 3 shots, that is Greg Nicol firing at David Dutch. Shots 4 till 8 fired by Mike Murcko onto James Copenhaver. And the last shot, Jason Woods, shot number 9. And this last shot gives us the idea of a trajectory fired from Tom Crook's position. Now, what is the advantage of doing it like that? Well, very simple. Each shooter can concentrate on a target, and every one of them, so Greg Nicol, Mike Murcko, and Jason Woods, they all observed their targets. Greg Nicol, it was David Dutch. Mike Murcko was Copenhaver, and Jason Woods, it was Comperatore. And they observed their motions, they studied them, how they moved, how they were going to react. And this is why they could fire these very targeted shots that in the case of David Dutch and Copenhaver were aimed to not kill the target, only to hurt the target. David Dutch and Copenhaver were hit twice. Non-lethal, they did not die from these shots. From a previous video, you know that there was also a woman standing in between Dutch and Copenhaver. She was also not hit, so they particularly went for old man to hit. And here with Comperatore, I don't understand why Woods shot him in the head. He could have easily shot him in the leg or in the calf. Yeah, but apparently Jason Woods thought it was easiest to shoot Comperatore in the head. Another thing that I want to explain here is the rifle stock that was damaged, that was found near Crooks' dead body, and they wanted to make us believe that there was some badass sniper who fired at an impossible angle, sprinting towards Thomas Crooks and hitting the rifle stock that was covered by Thomas Crooks' face without hitting Thomas Crooks' face in front of the rifle stock. And this is of course complete nonsense. That rifle stock was damaged before they just put that damaged rifle next to Thomas Crooks' body when they went onto the roof. Then how about that fluid pipe here? Well, this angle is also impossible. How should the fluid pipe spray that fluid backwards away from the bleacher and away from the telescope, even backwards from the direction of the telescope? In my opinion, this was a remote-controlled explosion. And then we also have the handrail puff in this corner that I debunked in a previous video as well. And in my opinion, this was purely an AI deepfake. And I got a nice comment by Swift, and he also had the same idea that a small amount of explosives was the best way to explain this fluid spraying backwards in an almost impossible direction. So thank you, Swift, for this expert comment.
Minute and watched.
But there is also another scenario. Let's just believe for a second that Jason Woods actually left his post. And then there is no 3-shooter scenario anymore. And in this case, we simply assume that Greg Nicol never left his post. I mean, it's simply not credible that he just says, yeah, I left my post and I walked around inside the building 5 minutes before the shots. This is just nonsense. And in this case, Mike Murcko simply had to move over to this other open window here. So he left his post at this window, moved over to this window, and then these two fired. And in this case, Greg Nicol simply took the first 8 shots, and Mike Murcko took shot number 9 with the suppressor weapon. So here we have that in the scheme here. And now we have the animation as well. Yeah, this is a 2-shooter scenario because here we assume that Jason Woods left the post, but I don't think this is credible. I think it was a 3-shooter scenario. And in a previous video, I suspected that it might have been 2 Secret Service snipers, but here we're only going to touch upon this briefly. There's not a lot that's different. We simply assume that Greg Nicol actually left his post and that Mike Murcko was the only one left at this window here, and that two Secret Service snipers, we call them Alpha and Bravo, just took position at these open windows here, and then they started firing. But here again we have the question, how can Mike Murcko not hear this? I mean, this is just not credible. In this case, Mike Murcko would be a silent accomplice. We can then ask the question, why wasn't Mike Murcko heard in Congress, in the Senate, and in the House of Representatives? Because he is the key witness, and he can tell us, okay, was it Secret Service agents, or was it just his colleagues, Greg Nicol or Jason Woods? And Mike Murcko cannot say that he couldn't see Tom Crooks from his position, because this is the first thing that people ask. Yeah, Mike Murcko, why didn't you just lean out the window and just fire at Tom Crooks if he had actually been the assassin? And Mike Murcko says, yeah, no, my gun was just stationed a couple of feet back from the window and I couldn't see Tom Crooks. And this is complete nonsense, because Mike Murcko radioed at 6:12 and 11 seconds, shooter is down, 10 Sierra 3, shooter is down. So Mike Murcko definitely did see Thomas Crooks. It is a mystery why they haven't interrogated Mike Murcko properly in Congress. Has there ever been a more cunning coward than Trump? Let me know in the comments. Thank you.